What are we running from? The silence we avoid at all costs. Hey there. How's it going? Before we dive in, I want to ask you a simple question, and I mean really simple. When was the last time you actually felt bored? I don't mean that fake boredom, like, ugh, I'm so bored, let me scroll Instagram for the 47th time today. No. I mean real boredom. The kind where you're just sitting. No phone. No music. No urgent messages. No tasks to check off. Just you, and time, and nothing to do. You know the feeling. You start fidgeting. You get up. Sit down. Check the clock. Look out the window. Stare at the ceiling. And after a few minutes, you think, why is time moving so slowly? Yeah. That moment. The one most of us run from like it's dangerous. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Because I want to challenge you with an idea that might feel a little backwards. Boredom might be one of the greatest allies of your creativity, your purpose, and even your mental peace. Yes, you heard that right. Boredom. That state we constantly try to kill with TikTok, Netflix, podcasts, or endless messaging, might actually be one of the few spaces where your mind can finally breathe and speak to you. But before we go deeper, let's ask the real question. Why are we so afraid of being bored? The Great Escape, why boredom feels like a threat. Think about this. How many times have you grabbed your phone the second you wake up? How often do you take it into the bathroom? Or pull it out at a red light, even if you've got nothing to check? Now, imagine a different scene. You're in line somewhere. No Wi-Fi. Your phone's dying. You've got nothing to do. And suddenly, you start feeling uneasy. You shift your weight. Glance at your watch. Take a deep breath. And a quiet anxiety creeps in, like time is holding you hostage. Sound familiar? That's because boredom has become so uncomfortable that we spend our lives avoiding it. But why? Here's the truth. Boredom forces us to face ourselves. When there are no external distractions, no videos, no notifications, no voices, your mind has nowhere to run. And that's when it turns inward. It starts asking questions we usually ignore. Am I really happy? Am I going in the right direction? Why do I feel so empty, even with so much going on? What do I actually want from life? And that's when we grab the phone again. Let's see what's on YouTube. Just one more scroll. Anything to distract me, please. And just like that, the cycle continues. And boredom, this potentially transformative moment, becomes just another thing to escape. But what if I told you that by running from boredom, you might actually be running from your own voice? Real stories, where great ideas are born. Let me tell you a story. Albert Einstein, early in his life, worked as a patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland. His job? Reviewing patent applications. Not exactly thrilling, right? To many, it would have felt boring. But what did he do in his downtime? He didn't rush to social media, because it didn't exist. He didn't binge-watch shows. He didn't try to optimize every second. He just let his mind wander. And in those moments of boredom, of mental stillness, ideas began to form. What if time isn't constant? What if space can bend? What if light has a speed limit? Yeah. The theory of relativity wasn't born in a lab. It wasn't discovered in a classroom. It was born in the mind of a man who was bored, and allowed his thoughts to drift. Another example. Agatha Christie, the queen of mystery novels, once said her best ideas came while she was doing the dishes. No notebook. No pen. Just her, the soap, the water, and silence. Or Steve Jobs, famous for his long, aimless walks, no phone, no agenda. Just walking. Thinking. Letting his mind breathe. What do all these people have in common? They weren't productive in the traditional sense. They weren't hustling. They were doing the opposite. They allowed boredom in. And it was in that emptiness that brilliance emerged. The science behind the quiet mind. Now, this might sound poetic, great ideas come from stillness, but is there actual science behind it? Yes. And it's fascinating. Neuroscientists have discovered that when your brain is idle, not focused on a specific task, it activates something called the default mode network. This network is like your brain's internal reflection system. It kicks in when you stop paying attention to the outside world and turn inward. And this is where things like daydreaming, memory recall, future planning, self-awareness, and most importantly, creative connections between unrelated ideas, all happen. In other words, it's when you're not doing anything that your brain is most active in deep, meaningful ways. A study from East London University found that people who did boring tasks, like sorting beans by color, later performed 30% better on creativity tests than those who did stimulating tasks. That means boredom literally boosts creativity. But here's the catch. This effect only happens if you don't immediately jump to a digital distraction. If, after sorting beans, you pick up your phone, the effect vanishes. Why? Because your brain needs time to process. It needs space to make sense of the loose threads. It's like clearing the cache of your mind. So I ask you, how many times in the past week have you given your brain that space? How many times have you just let it wander? Or every time there's a pause, do you instantly fill it with a podcast, a video, a message? Small rituals to invite emptiness. If you think about it, it's kind of strange how we live today. We spend hours trying to be more productive, more efficient, more connected. But the moment the world slows down, a red light, a waiting room, a quiet moment, our first instinct is to fill that space. As if stillness were dangerous. As if empty time were a mistake to be fixed. But what if, instead of fixing it, we tried something different? What if we just invited that emptiness in? Because, as we've seen, boredom isn't the enemy. It's a quiet invitation. An invitation for your mind to breathe. For creativity to spark. For you to reconnect with what truly matters. Of course, you can't just stop everything and stare at the ceiling all day. Life has demands. Work. Family. Responsibilities. But that doesn't mean you can't create small, intentional moments of boredom in the middle of the chaos. And that's exactly what we're going to explore now. How to make space for stillness. In a real, doable way. No spiritual retreats. No digital detox for 30 days. Just small choices, simple, powerful, and human. Let's begin. First ritual, the 10 minutes of doing nothing. Every morning, before you pick up your phone, before you check messages, before you turn on the TV. Give yourself 10 minutes of doing absolutely nothing. You can sit on a chair. Lie in bed with your eyes open. Or just stand by the window, slowly drinking your coffee. The key is no stimuli. No screen. No sound. No forced thinking. Just you and time. Sounds easy? Try it tomorrow. You'll notice. The first 2 minutes are fine. But around minute 4, discomfort starts to rise. Am I wasting time? I should reply to that email. Where's my phone? Just a quick scroll to see if anything important happened. And that's when the practice begins to work. Because what you're training isn't relaxation. It's tolerance for emptiness. It's like your brain is used to running on a treadmill non-stop. And suddenly, you stop it. It panics. What now? What do I do? But if you stay, something starts to shift. Random thoughts float to the surface. Old memories. An idea for a project. A quiet sense that something in your life feels misaligned. That's when boredom stops being boring and becomes revelation. And here's what many people say after doing this for just a week. I had no idea so much was going on inside me. Second ritual, walks without headphones. Another simple but powerful practice. Go for a walk, without listening to anything. You've probably noticed how most people walk with earbuds in. Podcasts, music, audiobooks. Nothing wrong with that. But try this, just once a week. Step outside and walk. With nothing but your footsteps and the world around you. No rush. No goal. Just walking. You'll notice that, without sound, your mind starts connecting with the environment differently. You see things you've never noticed. The color of the leaves changing with the season. A cat napping on a windowsill. An old man sitting on a bench, staring into space. And as you walk, your mind begins to work on its own. Thoughts come. Memories. Ideas. Steve Jobs did this all the time. Long walks, no phone, no agenda. He said some of Apple's most important decisions were made on those walks. Philosophers like Nietzsche wrote about it. He even said, all truly valuable thoughts were conceived while walking. And it's not a coincidence. Studies show that gentle movement, especially walking, activates the brain's default mode network. The same one we talked about earlier. Where reflection, creativity, and self-awareness happen. So try it. Even if it's just 15 minutes. Even if it's around your block. Let your body move. Let your mind wander. And if an uncomfortable thought shows up, I'm not progressing. I'm behind in life. Why do I feel empty despite having so much? Don't push it away. Just notice it. Let it pass. Because in that moment, boredom isn't the problem. It's the process. Third ritual, mindful manual tasks. Pick one simple task you usually do on autopilot, washing dishes, folding laundry, making your bed, watering plants, and do it with full attention. No phone. No TV in the background. Just you and the task. Sounds silly? Try it. When you wash dishes with attention, you feel the temperature of the water, the smell of the soap, the sound of the glass being rinsed, the texture of the sponge. And slowly, your mind begins to slow down. You're not productive in the usual sense. But you're present. And in that state, your brain enters reflective mode. Where insights, clarity, and peace can emerge. Some call this active meditation. But really, it's just reconnecting with the moment. You know how great ideas often come in the shower? It's not magic. It's because, for a few minutes, your brain is free from external noise, and can finally talk to itself. So try it. Next time you wash dishes, leave your phone behind. Next time you fold clothes, don't turn on a podcast. Just do it. You might be surprised by what comes up. Fourth ritual, the no screens wind down. For the last 30 minutes before bed, turn off all screens. No phone. No TV. No news. Then, for the last 15 minutes, just do nothing. Sit. Lie down. Breathe. Let your mind rest. It might feel hard at first, especially if you're used to scrolling Instagram until your eyes close. But this moment is gold. Because right before sleep, your mind is naturally more receptive. It's when the day's thoughts come to the surface. When your subconscious starts organizing things. If you fill this time with stimuli, you interrupt that process. But if you allow the stillness, Something might happen. You remember something you forgot. A conflict from the day gains clarity. An idea for a project appears. You realize you're more tired, or more unhappy, than you thought. And most importantly, you sleep better. Because your brain isn't overloaded. It's like closing all the open tabs on your computer before shutting it down. It feels like relief. Now, as we move forward, I want to ask you this. What if boredom isn't the problem, but the answer you've been refusing? Because sometimes, we avoid boredom not because we're busy, but because we're afraid of what might surface. Afraid to admit we're unhappy at work. Afraid to face that a relationship feels empty. Afraid to realize we're living someone else's dream, not our own. And that's exactly where we're going next. When boredom reveals a deeper emptiness, and how to turn that into purpose. Because boredom, at its core, might be a signal. A signal that a part of you is asking to be seen. And maybe, instead of running, you need to stop. Listen. And ask. What are you trying to tell me? Let's go there now. When boredom reveals the emptiness you've been avoiding. Have you ever had that strange feeling? That you're doing everything right, but still feel empty inside? Like, you have a good job. A loving family. Friends who care. Maybe even travel, hobbies, achievements. On paper, your life looks fine. But every now and then, in the middle of the day, while waiting for your coffee, walking to your car, or just lying in bed, a quiet question surfaces. Is this it? It's not sadness. It's not clinical depression. It's something subtler. It's a quiet emptiness. A silence that seems to whisper. You're busy, but are you really living? And here's the thing. That question rarely shows up when you're running. It appears in boredom. In the moment you stop. When the world pauses, and you finally hear yourself. That's why boredom can be so unsettling. Because it's not just about having nothing to do. It's about confronting what's missing. And often, we run from boredom not because we're bored. But because we're afraid of what we might find. Let me tell you a real story. A friend of mine, let's call him Mark, spent years building a successful career. Corporate executive. High salary. International trips. Nice house. Life many would envy. But about 2 years ago, he started noticing something strange. On weekends, instead of feeling rested, he felt worse. More tired. More hollow. And in quiet moments, like showering or driving without music, one phrase kept coming back. Is this really what I want from life? At first, he brushed it off. Must be fatigue. I'll take a vacation, reset, get back on track. But the emptiness didn't go away. It grew. Until one day, he told me. I'm not sad. I have no reason to complain. But I feel like I'm living someone else's life. And do you know where he first noticed it? In a moment of boredom. A Sunday afternoon, sitting on the couch, with nothing to do. No phone. No show to watch. Just him and the silence. That's when the mask slipped. And boredom, which seemed harmless, became an invitation. Stop running. Time to look inside. This kind of experience has a name, though few talk about it. An existential crisis of meaning. It's not depression. Not anxiety. It's different. It's the feeling that, despite everything working, something is missing. It's existential emptiness. And boredom is often the first sign. Because when your brain stops being distracted, it starts asking deep questions. Why do I do what I do? Who am I beyond my job, my title, my status? What have I given up to get here? Am I living, or just surviving? These questions don't come when you're busy. They come when you're still. And that's why we fear boredom. It's not the stillness that scares us. It's what it reveals. Now, here's a thought that might feel strange. Maybe boredom isn't punishing you, but calling you. Think about it. When your body is sick, it sends signals: pain, fever, fatigue. You don't curse your body for that. You understand it's a warning. But when your soul is sick, when you're disconnected from your purpose, your rhythm, your true desire, what does it do? It sends signals too. And one of the clearest is boredom. It's like a quiet voice inside saying, "Hey, pause for a second. You're moving too fast. You've forgotten me. We need to talk." But instead of listening, we grab our phone. Turn on a podcast. Open TikTok. Anything to not feel this. And the signal keeps coming. Louder. Until it turns into numbness. Insomnia. Restlessness. Disconnection. Boredom, in this case, isn't the problem. It's the symptom that something needs to change. So what do you do when boredom becomes a sign of deeper emptiness? First, don't run. When you feel that emptiness, that deep boredom, instead of reaching for a distraction, try this. Pause. Breathe. And softly say, "Okay. I'm here. What are you trying to tell me?" It might feel odd, talking to emptiness. But this is what therapists, philosophers, and creative minds have done for centuries. It's an act of courage. Turning inward instead of outward. Second, write down what comes up. Keep a notebook, physical or digital, just for this. Call it the Boredom Journal or Thoughts Without Answers. And whenever a thought appears in those quiet moments, write it down. Even if it seems silly. Even if it hurts. Like, "I feel like I'm wasting my time. I wish I was doing something else. I miss creating. I don't recognize myself anymore." Over time, these notes will reveal a pattern. And in that pattern lies the path to your purpose. Third, understand that purpose isn't about greatness. Many people think purpose has to be grand. Saving the world, building a startup, winning awards. But in truth, purpose is often small. It's doing something that feels meaningful to you. It's aligning your actions with what you truly value. It could be writing, even if no one reads. Teaching, even if you're not a teacher. Caring, even if it's not your job. Creating, even if you're not an artist. Purpose isn't about status. It's about peace when the world stops. And boredom, when you stop running from it, can be your most honest guide to finding it. Let me end this part with a question, and I want you to pause for a second and answer it, even if only in your mind. What would you do if no one was watching? If there were no likes, no promotions, no approval? What would you choose to spend your time on? This question hurts. Because it exposes what we hide. Buried passions, postponed dreams, desires that feel impractical. But it's in this moment that boredom can become an ally. Because when you allow the emptiness, these questions start to surface. And with them, the possibility of change. And that's exactly where we're going next. How to turn boredom into action. Because boredom doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning. Of a new habit. Of a new path. Of a life more aligned with who you really are, not who the world expects you to be. Let's go there now. From emptiness to action. So far, we've talked about how boredom isn't just an annoyance. But an invitation. An invitation to creativity. To self-awareness. To confronting the emptiness we've been avoiding. But now comes the question many of you are probably asking, and it's a totally valid one. Okay, I get it. Boredom is important. But, what do I do with it? Because in the end, we don't just want reflection. We want movement. We want change. We want to stop feeling stuck. And that's exactly what we're going to explore now. How to turn boredom into action. Not in a dramatic way. Not with a, "I'm quitting everything tomorrow" moment. But with small, real choices, ones that can shift the direction of your life, without needing a miracle. Because boredom, when truly listened to, doesn't leave you paralyzed. It gently, sometimes quietly, pushes you towards something more authentic. And that push often starts with just one small step. Let me tell you a simple story. A woman named Sarah, a high school literature teacher, told me she'd felt a quiet emptiness on weekends for years. She loved teaching, but outside of school, she felt lost. No projects. No time to write, something she used to love, but had put aside long ago. She noticed that whenever she was bored, like on a Sunday afternoon with nothing to do, one thought would appear. Do I still know how to write? At first, she ignored it. I'll start later. I need free time. I'll wait for vacation. But the thought didn't go away. And one day, she decided to do something small. She opened an old notebook and wrote 2 lines. That's it. 2 lines. Today the sky was gray, and I felt the same. Then she closed it. Went to make tea. But the next day, she wrote 3 more lines. Then 5. Then a paragraph. Within a month, she was writing a short story. Within 6 months, she started a blog. And a year later, she self-published a book. Full of stories about emptiness, boredom, and the slow search for meaning. And do you know what the first step was? Listening to the boredom. And instead of running, responding with the smallest possible action. 2 lines. That's all. This is how it begins. Not with a grand plan. Not with a life overhaul. But with a small yes to what boredom is showing you. Because boredom rarely says, quit your job and become a writer. It whispers quieter things. You miss this. This matters to you. You feel alive when you do this. And your job isn't to solve everything at once. It's just to respond with a gesture. Write 1 sentence. Pick up the guitar for 2 minutes. Send 1 email. Do 1 search. Have 1 conversation. Tiny actions that say, I hear you. And over time, these actions add up. They become habits. They become paths. Now, here's a practical exercise you can start today. Call it the 1% experiment. Here's how it works. Every time boredom shows up and you feel a desire, a longing, an idea, do 1% of it. If you think, I wish I played guitar again, pick up the guitar for 2 minutes. Just tune it. Play 1 string. If you think, I want to work in something more meaningful, search for 1 job listing. Just read the description. Don't apply yet. If you think, I'd love to live in the countryside, open Google Earth. Explore small towns. Write down 3 names. That 1% seems insignificant. It's meant to. But it has a powerful effect. It breaks inertia. Because the biggest enemy of change isn't fear. It's paralysis. It's the belief that it's only worth it if it's big. But life changes through small gestures. Through repeated, tiny choices. And boredom, when you stop running from it, becomes the trigger for those choices. Another powerful practice, the clues journal. Open a notebook, physical or digital, and every time you feel boredom with a theme, write it down. Examples. On the bus today, I was bored and thought about drawing. In the supermarket line, I caught myself imagining a garden project. In the shower, I remembered how much I loved writing essays in college. Over time, a pattern will emerge. And that pattern is your internal map, showing what truly matters to you. It's not about what you should do. It's about what your mind keeps returning to, even when you don't want to. And when that pattern appears, the question shifts. What do I do with this? Becomes. How do I start with 1% of this? Now, an important warning. Turning boredom into action doesn't eliminate fear. In fact, the more you listen to what you truly want, the more fear shows up. Fear of failing. Fear of judgment. Fear of realizing you're on the wrong path. And that's normal. But the difference is this. Now you're not running. You're walking with fear, not away from it. And that changes everything. Because purpose isn't the absence of fear. It's action despite fear. It's writing even if no one reads. It's speaking your truth even if it sounds silly. It's trying something new even if it fails. And boredom, in this journey, becomes a quiet ally. It doesn't push you violently. It just reminds you, from time to time. Are you still here? Do you still remember what matters? Let me give you one final example. A man working in finance told me he'd felt a quiet discomfort every time he watched a nature documentary. He didn't do anything with it. He just felt it. Until one bored Sunday, he decided to look up ecology courses. Just out of curiosity. Later, he volunteered at a local park. Just one weekend. 3 years later, he moved cities, became an environmental educator. And says, for the first time, he feels aligned. And what was the first sign? Boredom. Emptiness. The feeling that something was missing. He didn't listen the first day. Or the second. But at some point, he responded with a small yes. And that was the beginning. So before we move forward, I want to leave you with this. Boredom doesn't need to be filled. It can be listened to. And when you listen, it can lead you to real decisions. Small. Fragile. But true. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start with 1%. With one line. With one question. With one gesture. Because life doesn't change in a flash. It changes through a series of small choices. Ones that slowly align you with who you really are. And boredom, when you stop running from it, can be the first step. Now, let's talk about how to live with it, not as an enemy, but as a companion. Let's go there. How to live with boredom. Now, we're getting to a crucial point. Because up until now, we've talked about how boredom can be an invitation. A signal. A trigger for creativity, self-awareness, purpose. But if you're like most people, you might be thinking. Okay, this makes sense. But what about my real life? My job? My bills? My kids? How do I actually live with this? And that's a completely fair question. And it's exactly what we're going to talk about now. How to integrate boredom into real life, without becoming a monk, without guilt, without drama. Because the goal isn't to eliminate stimulation. Or to live in silence 24/7. It's simply to create space. To learn to coexist with emptiness, like someone who learns to walk in the rain instead of running for cover. Because boredom doesn't need to be fixed. It can be lived with. Let's start with a simple idea. Boredom isn't a problem to be solved. It's a state to be tolerated, and sometimes, cultivated. Just like you've learned to deal with cold weather, traffic, or anxiety before a big meeting. You can learn to be with boredom. You don't need to love it all the time. You just need to stop fearing it. It's like when you start meditating. At first, 5 minutes feels like an eternity. You want to quit. Where's the time going? Let me just check one notification. But over time, you get used to it. The silence doesn't disappear. But your relationship with it changes. The same happens with boredom. You don't have to enjoy sitting still. You just need to stop running from what might arise. And how do you do that in daily life? First, redefine what productive means. Modern culture teaches us that productivity is constant doing. Answering emails. Meeting goals. Optimizing time. Being useful every second. But what if pausing is also productive? What if 10 minutes of doing nothing is as important as 10 minutes of a meeting? What if the time when you're not producing is actually when your mind is processing, integrating, creating? It's like sleep. You don't sleep to produce. You sleep to stay alive, healthy, functional. Boredom is the mind's sleep. It doesn't look active. But it's essential. So when you feel guilty for being still, remember this. You're not wasting time. You're allowing life to happen inside you. Second, build small, realistic rituals. You don't need to become a hermit. You don't need hours of silence. Just integrate small moments of intentional boredom into your routine. For example, have your morning coffee without your phone. Just you, the cup, the smell of bread. Let your mind wander. Wait for the microwave with your eyes open. Instead of checking WhatsApp, just stay there. Look at nothing. Breathe. Go to the bathroom without your phone. Yes, it sounds extreme. But it's one of the few places where the mind truly lets go. And many people have insights in the shower, or on the toilet. Drive without music. Just you and the road. Let thoughts come. These moments are small, but powerful. And over time, they change your relationship with emptiness. You stop seeing boredom as the enemy. And start seeing it as a space where you can finally breathe. Third, accept that boredom will return, and that's okay. Like sadness, anger, or longing, boredom is part of the human experience. It won't disappear forever. Even if you start writing, painting, or living in the countryside, boredom will still show up. Because it's not a sign that you're doing life wrong. It's a sign that you're alive. And sometimes, it returns to remind you that you've changed, but there's more to discover. You're doing well, but could be better. You found a purpose, but another one might be forming. Boredom isn't a flaw. It's an internal update system. And the more you get used to it, the less it scares you. You learn to say, "Oh, it's you again. All right. Come in. What are you showing me today?" Fourth, don't demand meaning all the time. Another common mistake is thinking every moment of boredom must reveal something deep. If I'm bored, there has to be a genius idea. If I stop, there must be an insight. No. Sometimes, boredom is just boredom. It's just emptiness. It's just time passing. And that's okay too. You don't need to turn everything into purpose. Sometimes, the act of stopping is the meaning. Like when you look out the window and don't think about anything. You just watch. And for a second, you feel at peace. That's when the soul breathes. So don't force it. Don't demand answers. Just allow. And finally, boredom is an act of humanity. Because in the end, this whole conversation isn't just about productivity or creativity. It's about remembering what it means to be human in a world that treats us like machines. Machines don't feel boredom. Machines don't reflect. Machines don't have existential questions. But humans do. And that's where the beauty lies. It's in the discomfort. In the unanswered question. In the pause in the middle of the day. In the memory that suddenly appears. It's in those moments that we remember we're not just roles, titles, results. We're someone with history, with desires, with buried dreams. And boredom, when you stop running from it, becomes an act of resistance. An act of courage. A quiet no to the culture of always on, always busy, always happy. So before we reach the end, I want to leave you with this. You don't need to eliminate boredom. You just need to stop fearing it. And every time you allow that emptiness, you're choosing to live with more presence, with more courage, with more truth. It won't be every day. There will be days you run. You'll grab your phone. You'll turn on the TV. You'll rush. And that's fine. What matters is that, every now and then, you pause. You breathe. You say, "All right. I'm here. Let's see what happens." Because in the end, boredom isn't the end of the road. It's the beginning of a conversation you need to have with yourself. And that's what we'll close with now. The final invitation. The invitation to create, today, one small moment of intentional boredom. Just one. And see what happens. Let's go there. The final invitation. We've come to the end. But in a way, maybe it's just the beginning. Because everything we've talked about, boredom, stillness, creativity, purpose, wasn't meant for you to just listen to and move on. It was meant to provoke you. To invite you. To remind you of something you already know, but that the world keeps trying to make you forget. You don't need to be constantly busy to be valuable. You are already enough. Just by being here. And boredom? It's not a flaw in you. It's a quiet invitation in disguise. A signal that, even in the middle of the chaos, a part of you still insists on being heard. So before we finish, I want to leave you with a practical invitation. Something simple. Something you can start today, or even right now, if you're ready. Call it the 7-Day Intentional Boredom Challenge. Here's how it works. For 7 days, you'll create, on purpose, one moment of intentional boredom each day. Just one. 5 to 10 minutes. That's all. During that time, you will not look at your phone. Listen to music or a podcast. Talk to anyone. Do any task. Or try to think of something productive. You will simply be sitting, lying down, walking slowly, looking out a window. Wherever, however, but with no stimuli. And during that time, let your mind wander. Let thoughts come. Don't judge them. Don't fix them. Don't run. And if you want, write down what comes up afterward. What appeared? A memory? An idea? A question? A feeling? It doesn't need to be deep. It can be silly. It can be sad. It can be nothing at all. But the important thing is, you stopped running. And you witnessed what happens when you pause. Why 7 days? Because 1 day can be an accident. 2 days, coincidence. But a week creates a pattern. And in that pattern, things start to emerge. You might notice that. On day 2, you only felt anxiety. On day 4, you remembered a dream you'd forgotten. On day 6, you had a simple, clear idea about something you want to change. Or maybe every day, you just felt empty. And that's okay too. Because the act of pausing is already the transformation. It's you saying, I exist beyond my productivity. I deserve time, even without reason. I will listen to myself, even if what I feel is messy. Now, let me tell you what usually happens to people who do this challenge. In the first few days, most feel discomfort. Anxiety. The urge to quit. This is a waste of time. But around day 3 or 4, something shifts. People start noticing. I thought about my mom after years. I remembered how much I loved drawing. I realized I'm unhappy at work. I had an idea I'm going to act on. I just felt peace. And that was enough. And the most common outcome? They keep going after the 7 days. Because once you experience stillness, you realize it's not emptiness. It's full of life. It's where creativity breathes. Where purpose whispers. Where you reconnect with yourself. And if you're thinking, but I don't have time for this, then that's exactly why you need it. Because boredom doesn't steal time. It gives it back. It gives back clarity. It gives back meaning. It gives back connection to yourself. And in the end, that's what we miss most, not more tasks completed, but more moments when we feel truly alive. Have you ever had one of those moments? When, out of nowhere, you paused. And felt like you were exactly where you were meant to be? Maybe it was a quiet coffee alone. A walk with no destination. A rainy afternoon with nothing to do. In that moment, the world slowed down. And for a second, you could finally hear yourself. That's what boredom can give you back. Not every day. But sometimes. Enough to keep you from getting lost. So my invitation to you today is simple. Start small. Start today. Start with 5 minutes. You don't need it to be perfect. You don't need a ritual. Just pause. Breathe. Let time pass. And when anxiety comes, and it will, don't fight it. Just say, all right. I'm here. Come through. Because in the end, boredom isn't the enemy. It's the messenger. And the message is always the same. You are alive. You matter. And you deserve a moment of your own. Before we close, I want to leave you with a quote from a writer I deeply admire, Marina Abramovic. Silence is the space where everything begins. Where truth emerges. Where art is born. Where the human being remembers who they are. Boredom. Silence. Emptiness. Call it what you will. But don't run. Because in the middle of nothing, there might be the beginning of everything. Thank you for being here. For giving an hour of your time. Such a rare and precious thing. To pause, reflect, listen. If this resonated with you, you don't need to share it. You don't need to comment. You just need to do one thing. Tomorrow, create one moment of intentional boredom. Just one. And see what happens. Because the idea that changes your life might not come in a rush. Not in a meeting. Not in a grand plan. It might come in silence. In a pause. In a moment of boredom you finally decided not to escape. And when that happens, you'll remember this moment. And you'll smile. Thank you for watching. And more than that, thank you for pausing. Until the next pause.